now that we know some things, we let love give us wings. It's the key, it's free, it's for you and me, you and me. So let's discover love's great wonder. Let's discover the spell we are under. With Mililli, love. Hello, I'm Merlin Mililli. Welcome to the Love Show, where we grapple with the question, what is love? Today we want to know, is love the sound of bells? I've always loved the sound of bells. Who doesn't love the sound of bells? My Sicilian grandmother had a bell collection. Bells do remind me of her, so I have a loving tendency towards bells. But we all seem to have this affection for the sound of bells. And we have some very important bells. The Liberty Bell, the bell of world peace and love. We have ceremonial bells all around the world that are very important to who is performing the ceremony. Buddhist monks carry a personal bell about themselves. Wedding bells, church bells, sleigh bells, doorbells, even bicycle bells. Isn't it so much more pleasant to be dinged at by someone riding a bicycle than honked at by someone riding a bicycle? Those bicycle horns frighten me sometimes, but the bells don't bother me at all. We found here at the Love Show, in our Does Love Have a Frequency episode, that love does indeed seem to have a frequency. I have this thing for 432 megahertz. My guess is that 432 megahertz is love's frequency. I guess it's love. Love for love. Because we found love's frequency to be 432 megahertz. It is the natural frequency of our planet, whom we've also found to be love in our Mother Earth episode. Back in the 1940s, the Nazis did tests on the human ear to find the frequencies that made humans most uncomfortable. They found 440 megahertz to be the most uncomfortable for people, for humans. And then they pushed and bullied and, quite frankly, lied to the world and made 440 megahertz in tune. And to this day, most people consider 440 megahertz in tune. I'm a musician, and I don't agree. I play by ear, and I find in tune to be at 432 megahertz, which is why I love it so much. The planet sings at 432 megahertz. Yes, she, Mother Earth, is singing a little tune as she spins through the multiverse. Birds sing in 432 megahertz. Bells ring in 432 megahertz. Opera singers have been known to enjoy longer careers in 432 megahertz versus in 440 megahertz, where they've been known to have bleeding in their throats from singing in 440 megahertz. Bleeding from singing. I have PTSD. That is post-traumatic stress disorder. Most of the time, my PTSD is triggered by loud noises. Yelling, breaking glass, loud, disturbing noises. But if the noise is in 432 megahertz, it doesn't bother me. Why? Because 432 megahertz is love. Love makes noise. It has a frequency, and it's 432 megahertz. The Hammond here is actually tuned to A440. But I have found over time, this is a 1968 Hammond, and I found that over time, they drop into 432 megahertz. And that is when I like them and the sound of them the most. Because I originally fell in love with the Hammond, with early Grateful Dead and Pigpen's Hammond, and the Doors, and their Hammond. And that was in the 60s. Actually, Pigpen's was in 1968. But there are certain pianos that are tuned by ear. I play by ear. And if one tunes by ear, one finds in tune at 432 megahertz. You could ring bells all day long, right in my ear, and it doesn't bother me. Loud music, if it's in 432 megahertz, keeps me calm, actually. I used to frequent Dead shows, the Grateful Dead, when Jerry Garcia was still alive. Jerry often played in 432 megahertz. He could play as loud as he wanted, and I just ate it up. Of course, Jerry died before I acquired my PTSD, but no one seemed bothered by Jerry's playing. There were a lot of vets with PTSD at dead shows, and none of them seemed to be bothered by it. They actually seemed to be rather soothed by the music. I think because it was in 432 megahertz. In fact, before Jerry died, he couldn't play, or rather, he was banned from playing anywhere on a Saturday night because just too many people came out. And no place had that kind of capacity for that many people. Now, Jerry was not playing bells. He played guitar, but he sang often of bells. In Franklin's Tower, there hangs a bell. It can ring, turn night to day. It can ring like fire when you lose your way, Jerry sang from the Grateful Dead song Franklin's Tower. He goes on, God save the child who rings that bell. May have one good ring, baby. You can't tell. Bells are in all the best stories, ringing as characters pass into other worlds. I suppose love is helpful when passing from one realm to another. We've spoken before here on the Love Show about love's protection and how it's powerful, protective magic. Love is protective like an amulet. Excuse me. Excuse me. Love protects in all the best stories and in real life. The Tibetan monks carried personal bells to ward off negative vibrations. Bells are nothing but vibration. A clearly positive vibration. I don't think there is a more positive vibration than love. The monks mean for it to be love. The Buddhist faith is based in love, as are most faiths. I actually don't know of a faith that is not based in love. And nearly every faith, strangely, also involves bells in their ceremonies. I love the singing bowls and bells of the Buddhist monks. They balance one's chakras. As humans, we have chakras. Actually, the planet also has chakras. Fur flying around. The animals are all shedding. Chakras in Sanskrit literally means wheels. Chakras are energy wheels. 7 of them, up and down the spine. I look at them like cogs in my machine. They spin and whirl, and if they are not all 7 in harmony, the body or machine becomes all out of whack. Amazing, though, that bells can balance the chakras and create harmony. The same way love does, and all in the same frequency. Clocks even use bells. Precise measuring tools, such as clocks. But the chime of my father's mantel clock was almost as reassuring and loving as the sound of his voice. Clock chime. It's good stuff. It just sounds so wonderful to the ear. In my research for this show, I found this strange thing from Caltech marked performance recordings. It says, I quote, the Los Angeles Times Magazine asked for a personal essay about sound, music, noise, and our culture. The result was so personal that they found they couldn't publish it. And then they have a lovely copyrighted work by James Boyk. I'll just read you the first line. In love with sound, the way it reaches out, the bell on grandfather's vegetable truck, whether I was up the backyard apple tree, indoors at the piano, or playing ball 2 houses down. He goes on to mention cathedral bells and love. Love and bells, bells and love. The Love Is cartoon had one that was Love Is the Sound of Bells. There you have it. And I found that out after I named the show, as if in pre-answer to my question, is love the sound of bells? Yes. Yes, it is. The sound of bells. People have said when they fall in love with someone else that they hear wedding bells. The ice cream man in my neighborhood had a bell, not fancy music that they have now, but a bell. That bell was love for me. It meant ice cream! Everyone seems to love ice cream. And bells. Weddings even use bells as symbols for love. Have you seen the little bell decorations on invitations and cakes and etc.? The clang of the trolley, a cowbell on the countryside, the bells on the buoys out at boat docks, bells on boats. All very romantic, nostalgic even. Just speaking of them without actually hearing said bells makes us just feel love, doesn't it? Our school bells love. Isn't it funny that the first bell at school sounds exactly the same as the last bell, but it is the last bell that sounds like love? Remember that last bell was just sounds of love and freedom. And It's a Wonderful Life, it starts with the Liberty Bell ringing, but in the 1946 classic Christmas film, a bell rings every time an angel gets their wings. We have found here at the Love Show that angels are love and messengers of love. Christmas, solstice, we are now well into Hanukkah, and this season is so about bells. The Carol of the Bells, one of my favorites. I love the Carol of the Bells. It's just so moving. And you don't even have to hear a bell. You can just hear voices sing that song. And it's moving. But it's all about bells. And even if it's in another language, that song is about bells. Maybe it's the ding dong ding. But still, it's about bells. Jingle bells, ring them bells, solstice bells. Bells ring, friends, when love is happening. Because love is the sound of bells. You never hear, sound the war bells, or sound the attack bells, or we are ringing our hate bells at you. You never hear that. Why? Because hatred is not the sound of bells. Love is the sound of bells. Hatred might be no sound at all. Love is life. No sound is actually death. Excuse me. Love is the sound of bells. Christmas bells, solstice bells, Hanukkah bells, chakra bells, sleigh bells, church bells, wedding bells, cow bells, even Dad's mantle clock bell. Hearing bells, hearing songs or stories or poems or essays about bells inspires love in our hearts. Ring in the new year with love in your heart. Ring them bells, kids, because love is the sound of bells. Love! I love you. Have a loving, bell-ringing holiday. Ring them bells, because love is the sound of bells, folks. Thanks for watching. Ring them bells. Ring out some love. A Mililli Studios production.